When working with people with chronic pain, with IBS, with headaches, and other neuroplastic symptoms, one pattern has become abundantly clear. And that is that a lot of people with these symptoms, they tend to be high achievers. They are driven, they are capable, they are responsible, they take stuff seriously. They hold themselves to high standards. And the people around them tend to describe them as very reliable and conscientious, perfectionistic even. In this video, I'll explain why these high-performing people seem to be more susceptible to chronic pain, to IBS, and other neuroplastic symptoms. So let's look at the personality traits that these kinds of people usually share. One of them is perfectionism. They tend to be very detail-oriented, and they want everything to be absolutely perfect. Another is people-pleasing. They tend to say yes, even though they might want to say no. Yes to taking on more responsibility, to doing more tasks, to help out other people, even when they are the ones that could use the help. They tend to be very reliable for the people around them, to show up, to be conscientious, to be industrious, to work hard. They have a strong sense of responsibility and an impressive ability to push through discomfort and stress. And these traits make them very successful in school, at work, in their careers, and in business. But it can also come at a cost. And that cost is a growing internal emotional pressure from stress and from demands placed upon them by themselves and by others over long periods of time. You see, a high-achieving lifestyle consists of long hours, lots of pressure, lots of expectations and demands, and a constant inner feeling of wanting to do more and to do better. But sometimes the result of this can be that even when life looks stable and wonderful and successful for these people, their nervous systems are actually in a constant state of overwhelm from stress and from expectations and from pressure. You see, the brain and the nervous system's primary role is to protect you. But it's not like the brain only thinks about physical protection, as in protecting you from physical threats. It also accounts for things like fear of failure, a fear of social exclusion, and all these internal pressures that the high-achieving lifestyle consists of. And when you push through that, you push through the emotional stress, you push through the fatigue, through the stress, then the activation of those protection mechanisms in the brain and nervous system can become overactive and constant and chronic. Pain is one of the body's protection mechanisms. You see, the brain will switch on pain circuits to let you know that you have an injury or that something is wrong, something needs your attention. So all pain is generated in the brain in this way. And that's why when you are emotionally overwhelmed or your nervous system is overly activated, the brain can switch on the neural circuits that produce pain, even though there's no physical damage or any injury or any illness that causes the pain. It's simply the brain switching on its protective mechanism to alert you that something is wrong and something needs your attention. This starts to explain why high achievers and high performers get chronic pain, because when these neural circuits are switched on from too much pressure, the brain can learn habits where neural circuits are reinforced and they become habitual. Just as you have learned to ride a bike and the brain does that automatically without you thinking about it, in the same way, the brain can switch on chronic pain and make it into a habit where the neural circuits that produce it get constantly fired and reinforced. Now, the pain and the symptoms generated by the neural circuits in the brain are very real. Even though they might not have a physical cause, that doesn't mean that the pain is not there or that it's not real. The pain and the symptoms are very real. and they are produced by the brain as a protective strategy gone wrong. And this is what we call neuroplastic symptoms or neuroplastic pain. Pain and symptoms that are caused by neural circuits in the brain in the absence of any injury or any disease. Now, some of the traits that make high achievers very successful, they also tend to make them more susceptible to chronic pain, as we have just discussed. And these same traits also serve to maintain the problem. You see, when neural circuits get activated and you experience pain or you experience symptoms, the same traits will have these high achieving people just push through the pain, push through the fatigue, just grit their teeth and make things happen to continue with their high output, their high achieving lifestyle. When you grit your teeth like this and you just push through everything, that increases the internal pressure and it makes the brain even more sensitized to emotional threats, and then the pain can increase and the neural circuits get reinforced. And this is how chronic pain is maintained for years, possibly even decades. And you know, this is certainly my mother's story. This is how I got into this work. My mother, she would work so hard, and she would try to show up for everyone in her life. Whenever somebody asked her to do anything, she would say yes and she would get it done. I watched her develop these stress patterns over years and years. At one point, she couldn't even sleep anymore. She told me that she had started looking for jobs during the night, even though she had a full household, she had a job, but she couldn't sleep anymore. So she figured she might as well just be productive, right? So this is how this vicious cycle can really develop. So more stress and more tension, more pressure, it leads to less of an ability to relax and recover. So the natural answer is, well, I can't relax anymore, so might as well just go even harder, right? And this is how a lot of problems show up and are maintained. Okay, so what can you do about all of this? If you're a high performer and you struggle with chronic pain or IBS or headaches or other neuroplastic symptoms, what can you do about it? Well, the first thing you need to do is to start to build a sense of certainty that you don't actually have an injury or an illness going on. So you go and get a medical assessment, you go get your symptoms checked out, and if the results show up inconclusive, or if the results don't really explain why your pain or your symptoms show up, then that is a sign that your symptoms might be neuroplastic. The second thing you can do after you have ruled out injury or illness is to take the neuroplastic pain assessment in the description below. During that assessment, you will be asked a whole bunch of questions about the characteristics of your pain, and you will get an indication as to whether or not your pain and your symptoms fit the characteristics of neuroplastic pain. So when you have done that, you have a sense of certainty that you are actually okay, you're safe, and the symptoms are most likely generated by neural circuits in the brain, which are not dangerous, by the way. So that helps you get out of that perpetual cycle of fear and pain and stress. So when you work on reducing fear in response to your pain and to your symptoms, then that will start to retrain the brain into a sense of safety. And you will usually find that your pain and your symptoms start to subside. Another element of this that's very relevant for many high achievers is to practice cultivating awareness of your emotions and actually expressing them. For many high achievers, emotions are suppressed. So anger, sadness, grief, frustration, all of these deep, powerful emotions are just pushed down in order for them to keep achieving and to keep performing. And for a lot of people, and I've seen this a lot in my life, the work and the stress and the obligations become almost like necessary tools for them to keep a lid on these emotions, because these can become so powerful that you might even develop an anxiety about just feeling the emotions. So you pile on more work, more stress, more obligations in order to avoid feeling these emotions. And that's how people can become workaholics. These emotions, it's not like they go away by distracting yourself. They're always there. And by not allowing them to show up and be felt, then they have like an energetic spark that will never flare up and burn out. So they just keep burning beneath the surface. What we've actually found is that such suppressed emotions can activate these same neural circuits that produce pain, which is why emotional awareness and expression is so important, and especially for people who tend to be people-pleasing, that struggle to assert their boundaries, or that are afraid of not being good enough. Because these personality traits tend to make you inclined to overperform constantly and never getting your nervous system back into that sense of safety. Another result of this is the struggle to rest and relax without a creeping sense of guilt or even more stress. Some people will be more stressed when they are actually relaxing, more stressed than when they are like putting in the crazy long hours or anything like that. And this is usually because of this internal pressure to please, to perform, to avoid falling behind. So a part of recovery is to teach the nervous system that it's okay to relax and it's okay to feel safe. So if you are a high achiever who experiences chronic pain, IBS, fatigue, tension headaches, or similar symptoms, your body is not betraying you. It's actually trying to protect you. And for most people, recovery is very possible. So if you recognize yourself in this, you can take the first step by taking the neuroplastic pain assessment in the description below. That will tell you whether or not your symptoms and pain are likely to be neuroplastic and if they're likely to be reversible. You'll also find a link to work with us directly if you feel like the time is right. That's everything from me today. Wishing you all the best, and I'll see you in the next video.